Don Draper is a fraud, a deserter, and possibly a sociopath, yet he's also the most compelling character I've ever watched on television. Stick around, because I'm about to break down why this contradiction makes Mad Men absolute TV gold. You know what piques my interest the most about Mad Men? Everyone thinks it's about advertising, but Matthew Weiner created something far more sinister. A profound dissection of American masculinity crumbling in real time. Let me take you through this show, season by season. Season 1, The Foundation of Lies. Right off the bat, we meet Dick Whitman masquerading as Don Draper. This guy literally stole a dead officer's identity during the Korean War. Talk about commitment to a rebrand, right? What grabbed me immediately was how Weiner established this world where everyone's performing. Don performs success, Betty performs the perfect housewife, and Pete Campbell performs relevance. The Sterling Cooper office becomes this theater where nobody's really authentic. Making us root for a deserter and identity thief was a genius move. Don Draper is objectively a terrible person, yet Jon Hamm's performance makes him magnetic. That scene where he pitches the Kodak carousel, pure manipulation disguised as sentiment, and we fall for it every time. But here's what really hooked me. The period details aren't just decoration. The casual sexism, the chain smoking, the 3 martini lunches are all showing us how recently our world was completely different. Makes you wonder what we're doing now that future generations will find appalling. Season 1 ends with Don walking away from everything, but we know he'll be back. He always comes back because running away is his only coping mechanism. Season 2, Cracks in the Facade. Now things get interesting. Betty starts questioning her perfect life, and honestly, January Jones doesn't get enough credit for playing repression so convincingly. If you watch her scenes again, you'll notice there's rage simmering under that composure. Don's affair with Rachel Menken introduced something vital. For once, someone challenges him intellectually. She sees through his charm, calls out his emotional unavailability, and walks away on her terms. Revolutionary for 1962, revolutionary for television. The Cuban Missile Crisis episode remains one of TV's finest hours. Everyone's confronting mortality while Don's having his existential crisis about Dick Whitman. And who wouldn't love that parallel structure? How season 2 plants seeds for everything that follows is impressive. Jones' complexity beyond the bombshell secretary, Roger's heart attack foreshadowing his mortality obsession, Pete's ambition turning darker, it's all here. The finale where Don confesses his real identity to Betty should have been cathartic. But honestly, it felt manipulative. He's not seeking forgiveness, he's seeking control through vulnerability. Classic Don Draper move. Season 3, The Sterling Cooper Coup. Season 3 gave us the British invasion storyline, and while some fans found it tedious, I thought it perfectly captured corporate anxiety. These characters built their identities around Sterling Cooper, so what happens when outsiders threaten that stability? The season-long build-up to the coup was notable. Don, Roger, and Bert Cooper literally stealing their own company over a weekend? That sequence still gives me chills. It's Ocean's 11 meets corporate America, but let's talk about what really mattered: character development. Betty's growing awareness of Don's lies creates this unbearable tension. She's not stupid, she's trapped. There's a difference, and the show respects that distinction. Joan and Greg's relationship gets darker, showing us how normalized certain types of abuse were. That scene in Don's office, brutal and necessary. It strips away any romantic notions about this era. The season ends with Sterling Cooper, Draper, Pryce forming, but more importantly, it ends with relationships fracturing. Don and Betty's marriage is essentially over, even if they don't admit it yet. Season 4, Rock Bottom and Rebirth. If you want to see Jon Hamm's range, Season 4 is required viewing. Don hits absolute rock bottom. Drinking heavily, sleeping around, losing clients. It's uncomfortable to watch, which makes it brilliant television. The Anna Draper episodes gave us something we rarely see: Don being genuine. Anna knew Dick Whitman, loved Dick Whitman, and her death represents the last connection to his authentic self. When she dies, any possibility of Don becoming whole dies with her. But Season 4 also introduced Dr. Faye Miller, and here's an unpopular opinion. She was perfect for Don. She understood psychology, saw through his patterns, and could have helped him grow. Of course, he chooses Megan instead because growth requires work, and Don prefers easy solutions. The finale where Don proposes to Megan after knowing her for months? Pure impulse masquerading as romance. He's not choosing love, he's choosing escape from self-reflection. Peggy's evolution continues beautifully. Her relationship with Abe shows her trying to balance personal happiness with professional ambition. Sound familiar? The show constantly parallels her journey with Don's, but Peggy actually learns from her mistakes. Season 5, the Megan era begins. The 5th season splits fans down the middle, and I get why. The Megan storyline feels jarring because she represents optimism in a show built on cynicism. But that's exactly the point. Don's trying to reinvent himself again, this time as a supportive husband. The problem is that you can't change your fundamental nature through external circumstances. Don's still the same person, just with better window dressing. What I loved about Season 5 was how it explored the cultural shifts of 1966. The Beatles, changing fashion, generational gaps, laughs, all reflected in character dynamics. When Joan sings C'est Magnifique at the office party, she's performing nostalgia for a world that's disappearing. Speaking of Joan, her partnership decision remains controversial. Did she have agency in that choice, or was she coerced by circumstances? The show presents it ambiguously, forcing us to grapple with complex questions about power and survival. Lane Pryce's suicide hit me harder on rewatch. His story arc about feeling displaced, inadequate, trapped by expectations, it's devastating. And Don's reaction? He's angry at Lane for abandoning responsibility, which is a classic narcissistic response. Season 6, Unraveling accelerates. Season 6 might be the show's darkest, and that's saying something. Don's affair with Sylvia, his growing drinking problem, his complete disengagement from work, it's watching someone self-destruct in slow motion. The Hawaii storyline felt surreal, almost dreamlike. Don's having conversations with dead people, hallucinating, completely detached from reality. It's bold television that trusts viewers to follow psychological complexity. I liked how Peggy buying her apartment represents everything Don could never achieve. She's building something real, something that belongs to her. The parallel editing between her triumph and Don's collapse, that's pure storytelling genius. Ted Cho's introduction as Don's foil worked brilliantly. He represents the kind of man Don could have been. Successful, but decent. Competitive, but collaborative. Their partnership exposes every one of Don's character flaws. The season finale where Don shows his kids the brothel where he grew up, finally, some honest vulnerability. But even that moment feels calculated, like he's performing authenticity rather than actually being authentic. Season 7, The Final Descent and Redemption. The final season gave us two distinct halves, and honestly, both were necessary. The first half shows Don losing everything. His job, his family, his identity. It's brutal, but inevitable. What I appreciate about Weiner's approach is that he didn't give Don an easy redemption arc. The guy makes the same mistakes repeatedly, hurts the same people, chooses selfishness over growth almost every time. But that final episode, that Coca-Cola commercial reveal, genius or cynical? I'm still debating. On one hand, it suggests Don found peace and channeled his insights into creativity. On the other hand, maybe he just commodified his spiritual experience for profit. Very Don Draper, either way. The real emotional payoff came from the supporting characters. Joan starting her own company, Peggy finding professional fulfillment, even Pete Campbell growing into maturity. These arcs felt earned and satisfying. Roger's late-life romance with Marie provided surprising depth. Here's a character who spent 6 seasons chasing youth and pleasure, finally finding something real with someone age-appropriate. Growth is possible, apparently. So what makes Mad Men endure beyond its historical setting? It's the uncomfortable recognition that we're all performing versions of ourselves, that authenticity is harder than it looks, and that change requires more than just wanting to be different. Don Draper represents American mythology at its most seductive and destructive. He's the self-made man who's actually self-invented, the success story built on lies, the charismatic leader who's emotionally bankrupt. But the show never lets us off the hook for finding him compelling. It forces us to examine why we're drawn to people who are bad for us, why we mistake confidence for competence, and why we enable toxic behavior when it's packaged attractively. The period setting provides distance, but the themes are timeless. Office politics, gender dynamics, racial tensions, generational conflicts, identity crises, all still relevant, just with different window dressing. What did you think of Don's ending? Did he deserve peace, or did he deserve consequences? And which character's journey resonated most with you? Please share your thoughts in the comments and hit that subscribe button while at it.